Smythe left the bare corridor, the only clue as to when he should turn being the dim glow of a candle from within the interrogation hub. The metallic grating beneath his feet lost some of the clang of the corridor, another reminder that he couldn't even spare the water required to hose down these rooms anymore. Gone were the daily cleanses after an exuberant vivisection. Now the dried blood dampened the echo of his footsteps. To his left and right were two small operating rooms, their plexiglass fronts ready to protect any students from excess fluids or the occasional escaped Xenos. These were empty now and had been for far too long. Smythe had a duty to mankind, but he knew what it would do to all those associated with him, so he left his stringently loyalist students behind once he had realised what he had to do. He stood between the two rooms and rolled his shoulders, swallowing the tough skin of the opie stick. He clenched his fists and remembered all he had given up. He stoked the ember of his self-loathing. He thought of how he was forced to consort with Xenos filth to achieve his goals. If he were a stronger man, a more faithful man, a better man, he wouldn't have to resort to this. Now he was left stuck in one of the Inquisition's biggest ships with only mindless beasts, a man with the emotional range of a servitor, and a Xenos that wants to fuck him and flay him at the same time. Smythe rolled his shoulders, knowing that the nerve would still be trapped. He unclenched his fists. He walked forward, past the two small vivisection rooms and down the steps into the amphitheatre, where he could truly perform. But he knew this performance was not for his students. This time, he was performing for an orc. Do not think me unkind, Xenos. Today, I allow you to choose. Silence. Very well. Smythe wheeled over a small metallic trolley with a series of knives and clamps on its top. I do prefer the personal touch. In truth, the interrogation mechadendrites drew more power than he could afford to spend on a daily basis, and he'd had them working overtime on the Xenos these past months. He held the fine blade up to the candlelight and looked down its edge. Is there anything you want to confess before I begin? The same question, the same answer. Silence. Good. Smythe had performed many vivisections before and was well versed in the art. He had kept his patients alive and conscious for days under his knife. He had seen tyrannids burst from the innards of lesser species, contagions so foul the front row of the amphitheatre had been forced to give up their inquisitorial cooling, treacherous tau jellify at his first touch, brain parasites the size of a squat leap from the table, and he had persevered, unharmed and unperturbed, his gaze never slipping from the path of his righteous work. In this theatre, he was the master of life and death, only the Emperor having more mastery than he. He was master of his domain, and nothing could shock him. Where the torture mechadendrites failed, his skill would prove humanity's rightful rule over techno-heresy. His hand moved with precision, sliding up the Xenos arm, the skin in its wake parting as his other hand was ready with the flensing knife, sliding into the newly formed rent in the beast's thick hide. The flensing knife skittered off the green skin. Smythe cleared his throat. He leaned in closer to see what had gone wrong. There was no rent in the beast's thick hide. There was just unmarked, bulging green muscle. Smythe took a step back and inspected his knife. The fine razor edge had bent and chipped. Are you ready to talk now, little one? Smythe wanted to reprimand the Xenos for his tone, but not only was his knife apparently ineffective, relatively speaking, it took him 3 strides to go from the beast's feet to its head. I had spoken first, foolish creature. You were the one not ready to talk. The Xenos shifted in its restraints, but couldn't do whatever it had wanted. Instead, one of its large yellow eyes swiveled to peer at Smythe. If you say so, then let's say I'm ready to talk. Smythe replaced the useless knife on the trolley and moved to the creature's head. He bent down, reaching under the draining table, and began to turn a handle. The joints were stiff from disuse and the thread rusted from damp. But slowly, with every turn, the table tilted until finally Smythe was looking down on the orc's face. The brutish head was as big as his torso, yet its eyes must have been the same size as his. Tiny, beady little things. Smythe kept his gaze professional when he glanced at its mouth. The disgusting thing could take his leg off in a single bite, that he didn't doubt. Its small, pupilless eyes met his, and it grimaced. No, it was upside down. It was smiling. Not the evil leer of its species or the manic grin of the cutthroat, toothy snarl, but a human smile. Smythe took a step back. This thing was no human. It was a disgusting mutation of fungoid ape. A baby could copy a smile. This thing must have killed enough humans to see every emotion they had. Finding his resolve tested, Smythe looked away into the darkness. For humanity. For the Emperor. This was the only way his own soul be damned. Tell me, Xenos, why are you here? Its eyes looked down at the great ship chains wrapped around its body and the manacles around its wrists, forearms, ankles, calves, and neck. You put me here. Do not toy with me, thing. Your skin may be tough, but I suspect your eyes are not. This time it did grimace. I like my eyes. I'm here because Torque told me part 2 of his plan. He told me to find you. Smythe barked a sharp laugh and barely restrained an Opie stick-induced giggle. And what, pray tell, am I supposed to accomplish for your imaginary god? The beast tried to shrug but stopped itself. Torque tells, and I do. He said I needed to find one of you little ones that was a bit of everything. All the compulsions. Little one that could be a doc, a brainy git, a mech, a freak, everything. You think me a freak? Speed freak, I meant. Regardless, I must disappoint. Again, the creature stopped itself from shrugging. Such a human gesture. Maybe. But I haven't been wrong yet. Your existence is wrong. And what would you do with this human you find that can do all of these things you desire? I don't know. Torque hasn't told me yet. Maybe that's part 3 of the plan. Smythe backed away from the table, falling back into the darkness and leaned against the wall of the great amphitheatre. Perhaps in this thing's mind, he could be considered a Medicae, and any human would be considered a brainy git when compared with an orc, but he had no natural affinity with machinery, and he certainly didn't desire to go fast. No, the Xenos was wrong. Of course it was. Just look at it. Still, now it was time for a change of tack. Let's say that and not be a fucking retard.